Alright guys, thanks so much for clicking on this video. In the midst of the coronavirus, I was watching these videos on who the top 10 YouTubers are. And I was like, why not make the top 10 real ballers of all time? I think that would be a phenomenal video. And as I was making it, I realized how difficult it was because, it's really hard to be unbiased. It's really hard to, not give favoritism to your favorite player. But I think I got it really not locked down, and I think everybody will be very happy with what I came up with. So, nevertheless, here are the top 10 best ballers of all time. Alright guys, so starting off with number 10, we have the 3-time NBA champion, 2-time MVP, 6-time All-Star, and 3-time All-NBA first team, Steph Curry. He's averaged 23.5 points per game, 6.6 assists, and 1.7 steals. A lot of people are going to say, why did you put Stephen Curry? Why did you put Stephen Curry? He doesn't belong on this list. I personally don't like Stephen Curry. I don't, but I can't neglect what he's done for the game. Just because I don't like a certain player doesn't mean that I neglect everything he does. Stephen Curry earns the top 10 spot simply because of the way he changed the game. Who in just NBA history has been a popular shooter besides Larry Bird? Who's been a popular shooter? Go ahead. Go. Who's been? Nobody, right? Yeah. So you could say Ray Allen was one of them, but was he really like a superstar shooter like Curry was, or was he just a phenomenal shooter, an efficient shooter? Curry is an efficient shooter and a phenomenal shooter. I mean, he shoots shots that just seem unreal to make. I don't like him. I don't like the Golden State Warriors. I don't like what they represent in the league, but I just can't neglect his greatness. I put Curry at number 10. Changed the game for an entire generation, and I would not be surprised to see in a decade 6-footers shooting the shots that Curry shot. So Curry at number 10. Alright guys, so at number 9 we have Bill Russell. Now Bill Russell is an 11-time champion, 15.1 points per game, 22.5 rebounds, and 4.3 assists. The thing that knocks him down at number 9, people are going to say, why isn't he on number 8 and number 7? I personally think that he should have at least 6 to 7 assists, simply because he's playing with 7 Hall of Famers. You look at his team, his roster. At least 8 or 7 of those people in the roster are Hall of Famers, have their jersey retired and everything. His points are low considering the era that he's played with. That he was playing in. You have Wilt Chamberlain, who has averaged 50 points a season, 50. Bill Russell averaged 15.1 points as his entire career. So if he had averaged at least 25 or something like that, he would definitely be number 7 or maybe even number 6. Who knows? But for sure, Bill Russell takes the cake at number 9. All right, guys. With the number 8 position, we have Larry Bird. He averaged 24.3 points per game, 6.3 assists, and 10 rebounds on the dot. He's a 3-time champion, 2-time NBA Finals MVP, 3-time MVP, 12-time All-Star, 9-time All-NBA first team. One of the best trash talkers of all time. It was really hard for me to put him at the number 8 position because he's top 3. He's my top 3 favorite player of all time. He's amazing. I think he's an unbelievable player. He didn't play beautifully, but he put the ball in the hoop, and at the end of the day, that's what it counts. We're not talking about flash, we're not talking about this, we're not talking about that. With Larry, we're talking about efficiency, and he did it at an efficient rate. He's a collegiate superstar. He was a collegiate superstar, I should say, and collegiate legend. Left Indiana State and all that. You guys know the story. Won Rookie of the Year the same year that Magic was in it. There's not really much you could say about Larry other than when you mention his name, you think of legend. So Larry Bird takes the spot at number 8. Alright guys, so at number 7 we have Shaquille O'Neal. He's a 4-time NBA champion, 3 times final MVP, an MVP in 2000, 15-time All-Star, and 8-time All-NBA first team. He averaged 23.7 points per game, 10.9 rebounds, and 2.3 blocks. It was really hard for me to put Shaq at number 7 because he's my favorite basketball personality of all time, but I'm trying to be unbiased, and he belongs at number 7. I think that if he had not been such a journeyman, I think I could recall the teams that he's played with off the hand. I think it's like the Magic, the Lakers, the Heat, I think Phoenix, the Cavs, and the Celtics. Right off the bat, I think I nailed them all. A player of his caliber shouldn't have been a journeyman, so that kind of knocks him down on the list. And I think he's the second most dominant player of all time, right behind the player that I'm about to mention, coming in at number 6. Alright, guys, so at number 6, we have two-time NBA champion, NBA Finals MVP in 1972, and 4-time MVP, 13-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA First Team, Wilt Chamberlain. He averaged a staggering 30.1 points per game and 22.9 rebounds. By far, one of the biggest athletic phenoms ever. I mean, he was 7'2", I believe, if my memory serves me correct. I mean, he was a phenom in every sport that he played in. Track, basketball as well. If you don't know the story, as well as volleyball. He's a volleyball phenom, but we're only talking about one sport. We're talking about basketball. His strength was unmatched. There was a story going on in the 70s or in the 60s on how Wilt Chamberlain was going to sign a contract to fight Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, the greatest heavyweight of all time, Wilt was going to go head-to-head with him. There was also a story going on how Arnold Schwarzenegger bench pressed with him, and Arnold Schwarzenegger said that he could bench press more than he can. That Wilt could bench press more than Arnold can. Mr. Olympia was beaten by a basketball player. So to say that he was very strong is the biggest understatement ever. I think that he's the most dominant player ever, regardless on how many times he lost against Bill. It's not about the losses; it's about the impact that he had on the game, and his impact is still being felt today. He still holds the most points ever scored in an NBA game, with a staggering 100 points. Wilt Chamberlain is a basketball legend, and he holds a spot securely at number 6. Alright, guys, so at number 5, we have the 5-time champion, 3-time final MVP, and 2-time MVP, Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan, there's very little you could say about him that neglects him not being on the list, but 19 point per game, 2.2 blocks, and 10.8 rebounds. That 19 points per game really does slow his way on the list a lot, but it's not really about the stats that make you think, wow. It's more about what he did in his career. There's very few players that in the history of the NBA where you think of a specific franchise and that player comes to mind. You think of Michael Jordan. You think of Chicago Bulls, Cleveland Cavaliers, LBJ. You know what I mean? San Antonio Spurs, Tim Duncan. There's Atlanta Hawks, Dominique Wilkins. I could go on and on and on. Tim Duncan fits that for the San Antonio Spurs. Just a phenomenal player. He's not the most flashy guy, but if I need fundamental shots, it's coming from Tim Duncan for sure. So he takes the cake at number 5, and he earns that spot very, very well. Tim Duncan. Alright, guys, so at number 4, we have the 5-time NBA champion, 3-time Finals MVP, and 3-time MVP, 12-time All-Star, Magic Johnson, coming in at 19.5 points per game, 11.5 assists per game, and 7.5 rebounds. Magic Johnson, he made passes look good. Before him, Pete Maravich, but that's basically it. The bounce pass was the pass to do. Magic did the bounce pass, but did it in a fashion that caught everybody's attention. he made basketball sort of a movie, and that's why they called the Los Angeles Lakers Showtime. I mean, who before Magic Johnson, with the exception of Pete Maravich, can you say did that? I mean, who did that? Nobody. You know, passes were meant to be efficient, you know, and Magic did make passing efficient. And he actually, you know, he made passing efficient while making it look amazing. That's was so extraordinary. It was unheard of at the time to make passing look amazing. You know what I mean? It was unheard of to make certain no-look passes. It was just unheard of. It was preposterous to even, you know, like propose that would be a thing. You know what I mean? So Magic Johnson for sure was a huge game changer for a point guard. He made the point guard watchable. I mean, there were certain players in that point guard, you know, the point guard position at the time was sort of like a helper position. Now, point guards is the position to play nowadays, thanks to Magic Johnson and thanks to Steph Curry, thanks to a lot of players, you know, that came along the way. But Magic Johnson for sure was revolutionary in that point guard position, and for sure takes the spot at number 4. All right, coming in at number 3, we have Lakers legend, best Lakers to ever do it, Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant averaged 25 points per game, 4.7 assists, 5.2 rebounds, and 1.4 steals. The 3-time NBA champion, 2-time NBA Finals MVP, and MVP in the 2008 season. What can you really say about Kobe? Kobe influenced an entire generation. He was influenced by the great Michael Jordan. You know, few could do what Michael did, and, you know, Kobe for sure was the closest. You know, he was the best replica of Michael, and for sure he takes the spot at number 3. There's really not much you could say about him. Everybody knows about him, and yeah, Kobe Bryant, everybody. Kobe Bryant. All right, so coming in at number 2, you have 6-time NBA champion, 6 times final MVP, 5-time MVP, 4-time All-Star, Defense Player of the Year. Michael Jordan, 30.1 points per game, 5.3 assists, 6.2 rebounds per game, and 2.3 steals per game. Michael Jordan. I already know you're gonna go to the comment section and just spam me stuff. Before I say anything, I'm from Chicago. I am a Chicago Bulls fan at heart. Michael Jordan is God in Chicago, but you know, I should probably save this for the next, for the best player of all time, number 1. This is kind of a rant, but for sure Michael takes it at number 2. There's certain players, you know, that influence. There's very few players that influence both a sport and a culture. What can you say about Michael? I mean, the dude influenced a culture, right? The shoe game, and nobody cared about shoes until Michael came. Who cared? Who cares about basketball shoes? Honestly, who cares? You wear hooping shoes on the court. Nowadays, you see CEOs. Nowadays, you see sports executives wear shoes in meetings. That's how big Michael Jordan was an influence on a culture. On a basketball standpoint, dude, I mean, everybody's mom was watching Michael Jordan in 1996. Everybody's uncle was watching Michael Jordan in 1998. Nobody on earth wasn't watching Michael Jordan in the 90s. He was the epitome of the 90s in terms of sports. He was the 90s. I mean, you can't argue with me that he was in the 90s. Dude was amazing. He did it all. He did amazing things, and Michael for sure takes the cake at number 2. Alright guys, so before I mention my number 1 best baller of all time, I would like to mention the honorable player that didn't get into the list. A lot of you guys are going to say, why didn't he make the list, but Curry did? It's Kareem. The reason why is because when he got traded to the Bucks, or when he got traded to the Lakers, I should say, from the Bucks, he didn't live up to the expectations that everybody thought he would live up to be. Everybody kind of compared him. He was kind of a mix between Bill and Wilt, but his stats did say that, but it's essentially empty stats. Unfortunately, he took his team to a couple of playoff appearances, but without magic, without some amazing players, he wouldn't have gone to the finals, and that's just facts. I mean, I'm not trying to hate on Kareem. He deserves every bit of glory that he's getting, but in my rankings, he's not going to make it on there simply because if he hadn't had the help that he did, he wouldn't have made it to where he was. So unfortunately, Kareem doesn't get to my top 10 rankings. All right, guys. So at number 1, we have LeBron James. LeBron has averaged 27.2 points per game, 7.2 assists, 7.4 rebounds, and 1.6 steals. 3-time NBA champion, 3 times final MVP, 4-time MVP, 6-time All-Star. There's not really, you could say much about LeBron James. A lot of you are going to give me the thing of, what about MJ? He has 6 rings. Last time I checked, 6 is more than 3. If that's the case, then why isn't Bill Russell the GOAT? Like, why isn't Bill the GOAT? I mean, he has 11 rings. Like, what is the criteria we're going on? I think that the best overall player is LeBron, and I'm choosing the best overall player that could fill each gap. You know what I mean? I'm choosing that over the player that is a specialist on maybe 4 or 5 different categories. I'm choosing that player. I'm choosing the player that has amazing attributes in each category. I'm choosing that player over the specialist. I'm sorry. And I can't be the only one. And I personally think that I'm right. I think that LeBron is going to win another ring in the future, for sure. But if we're going on awards, then there's more, and if we're going on rings, then why isn't Bill the GOAT? So, and people say LeBron has so much help. LeBron has so much help. What a lot of people don't realize is that Michael played with at least 2 Hall of Famers. At least 2 Hall of Famers for those 3 rings. In 1996, 1997, 1998. He had a Hall of Fame assistant coach. He had a Hall of Fame coach in Phil Jackson. And people say, well, coaching doesn't matter in the NBA. What about Greg Popovich? People have said that Phil Jackson is better than Greg Popovich. So Michael had the GOAT coach. Like, why isn't that taken into account? So there's a lot of things to take into account when talking about Michael, but LeBron, I think, takes the cake by far. What he's done for the league is unreal. He first went to the finals in 2006 by beating the hyped Detroit Pistons, who had recently acquired Chris Webber at the time. There's really, LeBron has lived up to the chosen one hype and exceeded that far beyond our wildest imaginations, and LeBron for sure takes the cake at number 1. Alright, guys, so if you like this video, please comment down below what you'd like to see next. And please share with your friends. I would love for you to see who the GOAT is in your eyes. I gave you my perspective in an unbiased one, and I felt that I have done that very good. But this is a really hard list to make, but in the future, if you'd like to see the comparison between Michael and LeBron, I would love to do that. I would love to go into great depths onto why LeBron is better than Michael, but that would be for the future. And for sure, stay safe, guys. Wash your hands at least 5 times a day, 20 seconds each wash, and for sure, take care of yourself. Thanks so much for watching this video, and as always, be smooth. Hasta luego.